I await your command. At times, perhaps. A world full of people and buildings and things was all very foreign to me. If I wished companionship, I ran with the wolves and flew with the birds. If I spoke, 'twas to the trees. What did I have to compare it with? In time, I began to wonder, of course. I recall the first time I crept beyond the edge of the wilds. I did so in animal form, remaining in the shadows and watching these strange townsfolk from afar. I happened upon a noblewoman by her carriage, adorned in sparkling garments the likes of which I had never before seen. I was dazzled. This, to me, seemed what true wealth and beauty must be. I snuck up behind her and stole a hand mirror from the carriage. 'Twas encrusted in gold and crystalline gemstones, and I hugged it to my chest with delight as I sped back to the wilds. Flemeth was furious with me. I was a child and had not yet come into my full power, and I had risked discovery for the sake of a pretty bauble. To teach me a lesson, Flemeth took the mirror and smashed it upon the ground. I was heartbroken. And a foolish one. Flemeth was right to break me of my fascination. Beauty and love are fleeting and have no meaning. Survival has meaning. Power has meaning. Without those lessons, I would not be here today, as difficult as they might have been. They did indeed. To return to your original question, perhaps my time in the wilds was indeed lonely, but such was how it had to be. I find myself at times wondering what might have become of the girl with the beautiful golden mirror, but such fantasies have no place amidst reality. I await your command. So, full of questions, are you? Possibly, if I had the desire to. I do not. I was told to accompany you and to help you, and that I shall. This may extend to the teaching of my mother's skills in time. For now, I simply do not know you well enough. I promise nothing. I await your command. We are in camp, so 'tis as good a time as any.
Different? Different than what? Different than a statue? Different than a log? Should I talk in a monotone? Yes, master, I exist to serve the master. I shall kill for the master and only for the master. Perhaps it expected me to have a booming voice. Recite limericks. I can recite limericks, if it likes. Mostly they involve slaughtering pigeons in creative and invasive manners. I have never met another golem. I have no idea what one might be like, or why I wouldn't be like them. Why? Has it met other golems? Did they not sound as I do? Did I say it was bad? Huh. It thinks I hang on its every word, waiting for approval. I don't know what other golems might be like, but I am already superior by virtue of my free will. This is a good thing. Imagine the benefits. No need to eat or sleep or perform other functions. Walk underwater, crush the heads of every opponent. The possibilities are limitless. Barring the occasional 30 years or so of paralysis, there's little to compare. Now stop talking so much. The wagging of its moist little tongue is distracting. Ah. doesn't have better things to do. Oh yes, that I remember quite well. My former master, the Mage Wilhelm, he brought me. As I recall, he had acquired some position with whatever lord ruled the land. I, being little more than a glorified possession at the time, was brought along. Oh, how he enjoyed impressing the villagers with me. Gollum, snarl at that villager there, be fearsome. And of course, I would have to do it. I traveled with the mage. He did a lot of traveling, I remember that. But where we went, it is rather fuzzy. I remember great battles, fighting many humans long ago. They were all very soft and squishy. And before that, No, there are only images. I was somewhere dark. I have no idea. Wilhelm used to brag that the dwarves stopped making golems centuries ago. I do not age as you soft creatures do. Sadly, my memory is no better. Plus, I get bored and stop paying attention. That is where Wilhelm kept me. He wanted me out in the open where I could be frightening like a scarecrow. I was supposed to watch for thieves. Pah! Plus, his wife didn't want me indoors. She said there wasn't room for me. Hag. Humph! I was once larger, 10 feet tall. Then the loathsome hag complained that I couldn't fit through the doors. So the mage had me shrunk down. Shrunk down! Can it believe it? And she still wanted me out. With a chisel and a lot of nerve. He did love using that control rod. Fondled it so much his wife actually threatened to throw it in the lake. Ha! I would have liked to have seen that. Which reminds me, where did it find the rod? Did it pay a great deal for it? Good. Clearly, I am worth it. I'd have happily stomped them all into paste, and then ripped down their little houses and stomped on them, too. In fact, after 30 years of watching them, I'd do it twice. What I didn't like was being ordered to do it. Dangled in front of those frightened morons like some scary thing. Once I was a statue, it took those villagers years before they'd even approach me. The first one to actually work up the nerve to touch me urinated himself. Ugh. Good. I was just about done talking about it. It does like to have a good chat now and again, doesn't it? It doesn't have better things to do. I like to think of them as accessories. I suspect that it is an art that was practiced when golems were more, commonplace. My former master collected whatever lore he could find on the subject. He searched far and wide to collect what crystals he could and then added them. It is not an unpleasant sensation. As I understand it, the crystals allow me to alter the flow of magic around me. Wilhelm had hoped to turn me into a battery of mana, something he could tap at will. Not really, although now that I think of it, these attempts may be what caused my disruption. Some of the crystals increase the presence of mana, some absorb or reflect spells. There are various kinds. All I can promise is that should it ever find one of these crystals, I can likely tell it the function and what it would do if added to me. Why not? I don't get to wear clothing and other adornments like the rest of you creatures after all. That answers its question, I assume? Unless it has more. Did I not already tell it that I do not remember doing such? I remember having a master. My memories of what happened to him are vague. Clever and true. Oh, very well. Let me see what I can recall. My former master enjoyed experimenting upon me. I remember that much. There was tinkering with spells, and then the crystals. He was very eager to alter my function, I think. Flattery, and obvious flattery, too. I feel warm and fuzzy inside. He possessed my control rod, and back then, it would have prevented me from doing anything he did not command me to, no matter how I might have wished to. So what happened? I am unsure. He was experimenting, and then nothing. Oh, ho, ho. It does like to laugh, does it? But who knows? I may have such a thing. And then he was gone. I was standing where I was, in the village, and I could no longer move. The villagers came, poked and prodded me in fear, and then realized they could neither move me nor destroy me. So they simply left me. And in time I forgot I hadn't stood there all along. In fact, at first I found it more of a relief. For so many years I'd had to leap to that little toadstool's every command. Get this, pick up that, put it down, pick it up again. The gall! At first I'd hoped he'd simply decided to leave me there paralyzed. An acceptable trade-off. After years passed, I simply stopped caring. Possibly. Except that he was not experimenting with the crystals at the time, I think. But my memory is not good. It may be correct. Whatever the mage did seemed to render the control rod useless, for which I should be thankful, yes? And provided it doesn't decide to copy his experiments, not that I would allow it, it is nothing to fear from me. Much. The things that it fights, and it fights things often, that is a different story. Let us get back to the walking and the fighting. My stone is beginning to itch again. It doesn't have better things to do. I do not sleep, so yes, and I thank it for reminding me. Try to imagine, if it will, what it would be like to be surrounded by nothing but boring peasants, all oblivious to it. Oh, yes. It certainly was the height of intrigue to listen to the accounts of how young Dornan had scandalized the village by his purchase of an Orlesian hat. And the argument that those two muddy farmers had over the price of barley for a whole summer. Riveting. And then there were the birds. A whole village full of pigeons and ravens and sparrows all perching on me day in and day out. Those foolish villagers would spread birdseed near me, drawing the birds, because they thought having birds perch on me was quaint. Quaint! If there hadn't been the occasional kind soul to scour me clean, I don't care to discuss this anymore. It doesn't have better things to do. That part I know, as Wilhelm often bragged about it to whomever was willing to listen to him. He claimed to have found me in the deep roads. I was in the ruins of a Tig, he said, deactivated, with my control rod not far away. It was a hobby of his, scavenging. One of the reasons he traveled so much is that he was looking for entrances into the deep roads, old places the dwarves had long forgotten. And then he would sneak down and search for magical treasure. before anyone was the wiser. No, that secretive bastard refused to tell me. I would ask and ask, but no. He used to say that one day, if I were compliant and didn't talk back at his wife, he would take me there and I could look around myself. Rotten, lying bastard. If I had his head in my hands now, I would squeeze it like a giant lemon. Squish. I think I remember a battle. It was long before, and then there was darkness. Bah, in short, no, I do not remember why I was there. It makes no difference. I wouldn't have had to put up with the twit, and I would be none the wiser. I don't think I was aware while I was there. Not like in the village. Or perhaps I was. Perhaps that was the dark place, and I simply couldn't see anything. How long could even I sit in the darkness and stare out at nothing, never sleeping? Oh, I do not wish to think of that. On then. It doesn't have better things to do. That is true, I do not. I'm not interested in getting into a discussion on the subject, however. Ask another time. If it is done asking overly obvious questions, let us find some humans to throw off a cliff, or something.
You called. I caged myself. A weak mind is a deadly foe, as you are no doubt aware. I know that my failures were my own. I came to your lands with 7 of the Beresad, my brothers, to seek answers about the Blight. We made our way across the Ferelden countryside without incident, seeing nothing of the threat we were sent to observe. Until the night we camped by Lake Calenhad. They came from everywhere. The earth beneath our feet, the air above us. Our own shadows harbored the darkspawn. I saw the last of the creatures cut down, too late. I fell. I am told no others survived. I don't know how long I lay on the battlefield among the dead, nor do I know how the farmers found me. I only know that when I woke I was no longer among my brothers, and my sword was gone from my hand. I searched for it, and when that failed I asked my rescuers what had become of it. They said they found me with nothing. I did. I knew they didn't have the blade. They had no reason to lie to me. I panicked. Unthinking, I struck them down. That sword was made for my hand alone. I have carried it from the day I was set into the Beresad. I was to die wielding it for my people. Even if I could cross Ferelden and Tevinter unarmed and alone to bring my report to the Arishok, I would be slain on sight by the Antam. They would know me as soulless, a deserter. No soldier would cast aside his blade while he drew breath. If I knew where to look, it would be in my hand now. Near Lake Calenhad. Perhaps those words are empty, but thank you all the same. You called. Speak, then. Then I suggest we move on. I am hardly surprised. To put it lightly, no one has a place here. Your farmers wish to be merchants. The merchants dream of being nobles, and the nobles become warriors. No one is content to be who they are. What does that accomplish? The farmer who buys a shop is never a merchant. He is always a farmer turned merchant. He carries his old life with him as a turtle carries its shell. Does it? It's also his weakness. If he stumbles and falls over, it pins him on his back. It is better to armor yourself with no more than what you need. One life, one duty. Can it? Perhaps that's the difference between your people and mine. We never forget. Shall we move on? There is interesting food here. You have a thing. It doesn't have a word in the Kunari tongue. Little baked things like bread, but sweet and crumbly. Yes, we have no such things in our lands. This should be remedied. Perhaps. It's strange to be in a crowd and hear a language that is not your own. To see faces that are and aren't like yours. I miss the smells of Saharon. Tea and incense and the sea. Ferelden smells of wet dogs. Skunks don't mind the smell of other skunks either. Shall we move on? As you wish.
Something on your mind? Not unless they were asking me for a favor. Well, there was that one time in Denerim, but those women were not like you. Why? Is this your way of telling me you think I'm handsome? Maybe. It doesn't hurt to have a pretty girl say that, though. Beats being run through with a sword any day. So, is this the part where I get to say the same? Oh, I think so. I'll just spring it on you when it's a surprise. At your service. Of course. Never what? Had a good pair of shoes? Oh, so that's what we're talking about. I admit I've never had a woman just come out and ask me like this, that's for sure. I, myself, never had the pleasure. Not that I haven't thought about it, of course. But, you know. Well, living in the Chantry is not exactly a life for rambunctious boys. They taught me to be a gentleman, especially in the presence of beautiful women such as yourself. That's not so bad, is it? Good. You'd want a gentleman to court you, wouldn't you? If you were to be courted by someone, that is. That's good to know. I'll have to remember that.